Hello, welcome to the Dominaria United spoiler video, where we break down top 5 sleepers, top 10 cards from the set, and so let's get into the actual list as is. Now, like normal, I usually start off by telling cards that could be playable cards. So let's get into that. Now, these are cards that I think we'll definitely see play in standard, but I can't guarantee if they're going to go past standard. I am going to be testing out Tail Swipe in my Dinosaur series to see maybe if it's actually better than Reckless Rage. We'll find out. I do think the Iconoclast, the Kicker having a +1/+1 in haste, its trample, might actually be extremely playable in Pioneer, but I don't know. Survey, I think, is going to be really solid in standard. It definitely helps you get 2 Triomes. But in Pioneer, I don't know if there's going to be a home, just because we already have Hour of Promise, which gets any 2 lands you want. The only thing that Survey provides, if you want it, is if you're a combo deck and you're trying to set up a ramp and then find either a win con, right? Because you could dig 5 and find whatever win condition you want. Now, Cut Down, I think, is only going to see play in sideboards and standard. It's probably solid enough for that, but we got Fatal Push, another better black removal than that in older sets. Scorn definitely could be a Pioneer playable card, as well as choking Misama, but I'm just not exactly sure. Duly noted, I do like the way that Impeded Momentum is worded. I like the fact that they need to basically keep stun counters, because I like that approach. Tap down, get so many stun counters. It works perfectly. It works great with Proliferate, so it could be even more playable in other formats, just depending on how well Proliferate is in your, to play it. The last card I want to talk about is Tear Asunder, which is strictly better naturalize. That can be kicked for a black and a colorless to exile any non-land permanent. So is this playable as a sideboard card? It could be. If there is a world where you're in Golgari and you do want exile base removal for artifacts and enchantments, but you also want it to be, maybe you'll take the hit in that given situation to also be able to hit anything for 4 mana. It scales. It might actually be playable, but I'm not 100% certain. Eternal Staples. Knight of Dust Shadow is a very nice looking knight. It's pretty cool. Your opponents can't gain life. It has Menace. We played Menace Tribal before. This is another Menace guy. It's kind of cool. We have a Benellish Sleeper as a kicker, black. Each player sacrifices a creature. So it's essentially a common version of this card, and it scales. So I like this card strictly for Pauper. Now, Coalition Warbrute is the only endless that has Trample. It's a common. So, like I said, this card, I don't know if it would ever see play in Pauper, but it is not a bad body, and tapping down some smaller threats to make them bigger to get in that aggressive attack, and it is a Minotaur. Now, we also have Balmar Battle Mage Captain. It's pretty solid if you want to do Wizard Tribal in Pioneer. I don't think it's strong enough to go to Modern. Other key thing here is Inscribed Tablet. I like this card in regards to Tron. Now, my thought process is, okay, what if you were a Tron deck that necessarily doesn't want to have green, right? Because you would basically be picking this over something like Ancient Stirrings, right? So there has to be incentive to basically be colorless Tron over maybe a green. Or you maybe, you could replace Chromatics and for something better, and you could easily dig for lands. What else I like about this card is you play it on 1, next turn, you can immediately crack it, find your next mine, play the mine for the turn untapped, play something else. So it's not like Expedition Map where, you know, it basically takes up both of your mana turn 2. Now, on the lower side of the page, we got a whole cycle in the set, one of each color. Basically, outside of the green one, which is a 3 mana 4/6, these all could be a single white, single red, single blue, or single black for a 5/5, 5/5, 5/5, 4/4. They all have a keyword: Death Touch, Ward, Trample, Vigilance. So they're all common. So they all could be some sort of sweet card for Pauper. Now, I also want to point out the Branch Rider. It's a 1 mana 1/1 with haste that has the ability to be pumped. So that could be a solid playable card for Pauper as well. And it also scales. So if you have 4 mana, then it becomes a 3/3 with haste, which is actually not that bad. So it's also a warrior. I don't know if there is solid party mechanic cards in the format, but yeah, I like them. I like them a lot. Now, next page, we got some staples I think are more for Modern and Pioneer. Now, duly noted, Phoenix Chick is only on here because it's adorable, so keep that in mind. Now, for Modern playables, we got Nishaba Brawler. That's basically, it looks like it might be playable in Domain. Zoo. We also got Impulse on the bottom right. And it's also, Impulse is pretty good for Pioneer because Expressive Iteration got banned. Steel's Crusher could be an okay card for main grave artifact and main board artifact hate on a solid body. For Pauper, now Crystal Grotto, which is strictly a better version of the previous Color Scry one. I believe that one was uncommon. This is now a common. And then you could basically filter any colorless land into another color. I like that. We have Battlewing Mystic, which is basically a blue, a red, and a colorless for a 2/1 that basically you discard your hand and draw 2. So it's pretty good top end if you vomited the rest of your hand already. So it's pretty good in bird tribal, as well as any other aggro deck that potentially just vomits at hand pretty quickly. We got a brand new Growth Spiral for the Pioneer format. So I do think this card is very interesting. Scry 2, draw 1, and then you may put a land on the play if you kick it. Pretty solid overall, I think. I'm definitely going to be trying it out in the next season with Rogue Scapeshift, I think. And the last noticeable 2 cards, I guess, are Combat Research, which basically is a new Curious Obsession. It's better than Curious Obsession for legendary creatures. And then we have Rona's Vortex, which I kind of like. It's a bounce effect for planeswalkers or creatures. And then you can tuck something. What I also like about this card is the fact that it's not double of any color, which as a Gates player, I kind of like it because it gives me the flexibility of not having to have double blue. So if you are someone that actually cares about, having less one of each color more than, double of a color, this is honestly pretty solid removal. Hello, it's your host KebbieG. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, also the bell notifications. Don't forget to check out the sweet stuff that's down in the description down below. Honorable Sleepers. This is just a card I wanted to talk about, even though I don't think it's going to be very great. I love the callback to Rock's War Monk. I basically started Standard right when he was about ready to rotate in a year. I love that card so much. 3 mana, 3/4 lifelink. It's not really playable in Modern anymore, but it could be playable in Pioneer, maybe. I don't really know. But we essentially got a similar card here. Same colors, 3/3 with lifelink, but the difference is instead of the extra points of toughness and it being legendary, at the end step, if you gain life, you may draw up to that amount of life by paying X. So it's pretty solid overall, I think. I don't know if it's actually going to show up, but I do wanted to mention that throwback. 5 on our list. As someone that likes Sapr Links, this is a nice addition. We essentially got our Kalitas, and that's pretty awesome. So if you are a Sapr Link fan, this is probably going to be an auto-clued. You're probably going to run 2 or 3 copies of it. It's pretty good mid-range threat. You might even play a couple copies of the 5-drop that makes a Sapr Link every single upkeep. But Slime Foot, we have Migration. So we have cards in Pioneer that could make this Golgari deck actually plausible. So at number 4, we got a brand new combo. Essentially, Urborg with the Leyline of Singularity basically means that if you can get 2 copies of Elias El Core, they would just infinitely just 1 die. You deal damage, you get a token, deals damage, token, deal damage. So I'm kind of interested to see how this actually plays out. I will be brewing this, I think, for next season for Modern. Number 3, Zur Internal Schemer. Now, I like this card in conjunction with Esper, maybe having a new archetype into the format. We have tons of these enchantment creatures that, don't really have a place to go. And the fact that this card gives those creatures hexproof, death touch, and lifelink, on top of the fact that each player can't draw them more 1 card each turn. So you could have a little bit of a hate bear enchantment creature sub-theme in Esper. And I'm kind of actually excited about this. I don't know if it's going to be something I'm going to brew for Pioneer right out of the gate. I have a lot of options for Pioneer, so number 2 on my list is a card that I'm going to be brewing for Legacy. Now, with the addition of a lot of the white cards like Paul's, we have had a legit reason to go into Selesnya. We have not really had a legit reason to play Boggles and Simic. And Ivy Gleanful Spell Thief, it's reasonable body, 2/1 flyer for 2. And so it's cheap as well. So I really like this card overall. It really pushes a new archetype into the format for Boggles. Now, the reason why I'm targeting Legacy, in addition to the fact that I actually, need to make 5 or so decks for Legacy, is Simic. If I could build this correctly, like the favor of Overbeing, I can make most of these cards pitchable to force a will to stop degenerate decks while executing my game plan of getting a Boggle down. So that's what I'm thinking about doing. Let me know down in the comments if you think this could be a legit strategy in Legacy. But I think overall, I like the fact that there's a legit reason now to be in Simic. The number 1 sleeper is Karns Silax. Now, I love this card strictly for the reason this might be a solid main board card for Tron, because that's not Oblivion Stone. I do get there is a big difference with Oblivion Stone, of course. Now, here's the positives with this card. It's much more time consuming to put those fate counters on your permanents. This one, all you do is gotta pay 5 and be like, okay, I keep my Karn, I keep my Ugin, I blow everything of yours up. So it's more traditionally a one-sided wrath. And turn 3, play this with your tower, devote 4 mana to something else like Karn, Great Creator. You could shut off your opponent's fetches. So it performs an avenue, I think, in a prison-y style of Tron that might actually be a sweet addition. I definitely could have put this in my top 10 section, but I wanted to really give this a number 1 feel. So putting it number 1 sleeper, I felt like was the correct answer. Otherwise, it would be my top 5 in the upper section. I think this card is legit. It's going to be pretty solid overall for Prison Tron, as well as other types of strategies, since it's colorless in the modern format. Now, honorable mentions. Now, these are cards that I think are going to have impact, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Duly noted, I'm a Gates player. I love the fact that we got a new rare Gate. The 3 Pain lands being printed makes budget mana bases much more attainable in the Pioneer, so that's a huge bonus. Hopefully we should be able to get the last 2 pieces in the next set. The other 3 that we got in this set, should be basically less than $1 a piece. Now, Involved Sleeper. I don't actually know if this card is actually playable enough to be in Pioneer, but it is a 1-drop that can scale, and we do know this is a playable thing with the Spirit. So Mono Blue Spirits plays that 1-drop. Could there be a Mono Black aggro that once says something similar that grows to a 2/2, a 3/3, and then it just basically is a walking Phyrexian Arena for 3 mana after that? I don't know. The most playable card that I think could have potential is Jahora. I do think this card is actually pretty solid. There is plenty of ways to make it go infinite. Not necessarily infinite, but the turn that basically you can start tapping it, you should be able to get her up pretty high because there's enough artifacts that basically untap her. So you tap again, tap, tap, untap. Asters is something I might want to try in the next season for Warrior Hammer Time. I think a 2 of might be okay for him. Making the crew cost and finding my hammer is actually pretty nice. Devastator, I kind of like this card overall. I see it something with like Heart Scales. I'm going to showcase the card later on that I probably would play in the exact same list, like Gruul. Heart Scales, I like this card. With Heart Scales, it could be a, X, or the cost that you pay is the cost of the actual threat, or the power and toughness of the threat. Page is Urborg Lurgoyf. It's not exactly a Tarmogoyf. It basically is based on the power of creatures in your library. I like the fact that it can be kicked for a black and a blue, and you mill 3 cards for each time it was kicked. So 4 mana, potentially mill 6 is not terrible. The question is he strong enough at all to see play in 2 Eternal formats? I'm not exactly sure, but I will probably try him at some point. Let's start with the top 10 list. Now, honorable mention is the Archangel of Wrath. Both of these angels look semi-playable. I'm kind of intrigued if they actually could withstand or come in to a Angels deck, or they might actually make a deck of their own, right? But Saragon Paragon, it might be the best reason to play a 4-drop Angel, but I am kind of worried about it because traditionally right now the best versions of Angels and Pioneer are typically with Coco, and I don't know if you would actually want to drop Coco and run more of a mid-range to late game package of Angels, which is what I'm going to be trying in the next set. Probably Mardu, so I could try the Archangel of Wrath as well. So basically a black or a red, 2 damage for each time it was kicked as lifelink, so you gain that much life. So up to 4 damage life gain is reasonable, and if it's done correctly, you should gain more life because it's ETB Angel gain life. So, but Sierra Paragon, it could have potential. I don't necessarily know if Greasefang would want to play it because it can get back Greasefang himself, but it's really up to, I guess, the deck. It could also be in a mono white weenie as a top end. I'm kind of on the fence about these first 2. I'm kind of on the fence if they really are actual top 10 considerations. Number 9, Jaya. 4 mana, 4 planeswalker, or 4 loyalty planeswalker, +1 create a monk with prowess, -1 exile top 2 cards. You may play one of them that turn. -2 is basically a semi-removal if you have a lot of aggressive attackers. And the -8 is basically you get to copy a red instant or sorcery. Copy it twice. It definitely can win the game. I just don't know how much this card can bridge and compete against Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Is there a world where this card is better than Chandra in a given deck? Now, I wanted to just mention it. Extinguish the light. So, poor Jahia, she died. So, let's take a second to honor her memory. But that's only the reason why it's on the screen. Is clearly she sacrificed herself to save Dominaria, but that's either here or there. So I think she might be a okay playable planeswalker. Like I said, is she better than Chandra, Torch of Defiance, a Pioneer? My expectations say no, but I could be proven wrong. Number 8 on our list is the best of the Defiler of the cycle. Now, this is lower or higher on my list because of the fact that it's 5 mana. It's not exactly as efficiently costed as some of the other spells coming up. So, that is duly noted. I do also like this card for the exact same deck I was talking about earlier. Gruul, potentially. Heart and Scale, so we get every time you cast a green permanent, you basically put a count on each creature you control. Pretty solid. Defiler of Dreams also noticeable. It draws a card. The Silverback Elder might be a solid, reasonable threat. Since it doesn't have an ETB trigger, you do have to wait. But if you do want to find a way to dig for lands, it's pretty noticeable. Also, gaining 4 life is not terrible. Or destroying a target artifact or enchantment. So it's not a bad creature overall. It has no keywords, which is kind of weird. But it could potentially be a solid playable card. The question is, would a deck want to pick this up over Cavalier of Thorns? That is something I'm not exactly sure on. But it's kind of weird, though, that the rare 5-drop is more playable than the 5-drop Mythic. So it's kind of sad for this poor little ape. But number 7 on our list is the primary card that I want to play for +1/+1 counter Gruul aggro. With Heart and Scales, Thundering Raiju, and Pioneer, this could be a legit card. I do like the callback to Corian. Basically, they used to get a +1/+1 counter whenever you cast a non-green spell. So now we get a creature spell. So a very aggressive potential aggro shell here. I'm kind of curious about it. It potentially can be, a 4/4 on turn 3 attacking, which is pretty solid overall, especially that it really is more likely if we can harden Scales. Now, number 6 on our list is a card that I think is not exactly, of course, not Omnath, but it is the next closest thing to it. Now, if you are in Jund and you don't really care about all 4 colors, this is much more easier to splash. I probably will play a couple copies in the Gate deck that I feature this next season. It comes down, you get to basically put a Gate into play from your graveyard, which is not bad. Whenever it attacks, it does the same thing. So, gaining life, drawing cards, or making him indestructible is pretty reasonable abilities attached to him. That's why he's coming in at number 6. He's definitely looks like a solid card overall for constructed play, but is he, top 5 potential? Probably not. Number 5 on our list is Mihira, Scholar of Antiquity. Basically, you could tap any untap non-token artifact you control to add a green, or you can tap 2 untap artifacts you control to exile top card of your library to play it this turn. This card, I think, could break into Pioneer extremely hard. I could be completely wrong, but there is so many potential combo avenues you could take with this card that, honestly, it might warrant bans. I don't know if it will. Hopefully it doesn't. But the sheer power that I think this card can provide is Of course, not at the level of Urza in Modern, but it's very potent. Like, this card could legitly just create a Kethis style deck with artifacts and a huge combo finish that could win probably on turn 3 or 4. So I don't know exactly if this card is going to be a huge problem or not, but I really think this card has a legit shot in changing the entire format. Number 4 on our list. Control players, be happy because you got a sweet new Semi-Wrath. Since we all know you guys don't play hardly any permanents that are less than 2 mana value in Pioneer, and we know blue white control is one of the best of the controls. I do think this card is pretty awesome overall. So I think this is going to be a solid 1 to 2 of in all control player sideboard potentially. It could even show up in the main board. Exile on each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until this leaves the battlefield is a pretty powerful effect. Number 3 on our list. Now, we all know how powerful Prismatic Ending is. Just a little shout out to the Firebrand over there. Since I was talking about Domain, I went ahead and just added her on the page. She's also pretty solid. I'm probably going to try a couple copies of her in Domain Zoo in Modern, but we're here to talk about the better card. Now, Leyline Binding with Flash. So, not only do you guys realize that Prismatic Ending is such a dominant card, you guys decided to print a card that's probably going to be 2 main board slots and 2 sideboard slots in Zoo decks now. Because why wouldn't you play this? It honestly might even see play Calibrated Blast in the sideboard potentially. Because it is 6 mana value, so it's not like it's a very cheap card overall. But 1 mana potentially to exile anything at instant speed that's not a land is pretty strong. This card is basically a flash version of Prismatic Ending. And the best part about this card, it takes, 7? So 1 white and 6 to pay into a March of the Otherworldly Light to get rid of this. And Prismatic Ending can't hit it. So whatever you get with this is going to be pretty hard for your opponent to remove this based on the current most played things in Modern. So I really like Leyline of Bindings. It definitely deserves the number 3 slot. And I think this card is going to be a huge factor in Domain decks from Pioneer to Modern to maybe even Legacy. Probably Legacy as well. So I like it. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this card, because I want to know. So number 2 on my list is kind of cheating, right? It is the entire cycle of 2 mana lords. One thing to notice here is I decided to order them based on, I think, their overall power from left to right. Now, Hexcatcher, I think, is the strongest of the cycle. I'm not necessarily a Merfolk player, but the fact that, for one, unlike these 3, they require mana to do their ability. Just sacrificing any given Merfolk to basically turn them into a Curse Catcher seems pretty strong. Has Flash? Seems pretty reasonable. I think Hordemaster is second most. Again, it doesn't require mana of any kind, and it works with Skirk Prospector, so that's pretty good. It comes in at number 3 on my list for the cycle. Elves do have the mana to pay, so agreeing for a draw an extra card is not that bad. It definitely helps against Wraths, so that's a pretty nice effect. It gives you something to use your mana on, I guess, but because the fact that it does have to pay mana, I think it makes it not as powerful as the other two above it. Now, Shadowbright Priest is the least supported tribe out of the cycle. There's not that much going on with clerics. It's kind of interesting that you can sacrifice any cleric you want, search for any black creature you want, which is kind of awesome. Now, you could find a very big demon at the end, but I do think Overall, he is better than the veteran because his activated ability is better. I would much rather sacrifice any cleric to get any black creature I want than to exile my veteran from my yard to put a counter on my soldiers. These are all great, efficiently costed cards. They're all going to see constructive play. I think I don't know if they go back to modern. Hexcatcher probably does. Horde Master probably does. Visionary will. But the soldier and cleric are only probably going to be restricted just probably to Pioneer. I don't think they're playable enough to go further than that. But they're all interesting nonetheless. Now, the number one card from the new set is Liliana the Veil. Welcome reprint, the best of the Lilianas. Welcome to Pioneer. Recently I played I think it aired today. I played a Rakdos Waste Not deck. This card immediately slots in, and I already thought the deck was pretty powerful and overall it was pretty strong. And with the addition of Liliana the Veil, I think the deck actually might be pushed up to a legit tier. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be tier 1, but tier 2 seems pretty reasonable if you like Waste Not, of course. I think the deck is pretty strong, as is with Angrath, the 4-mana Liliana, but the 3-mana Liliana, in addition to it, will push this deck, I think, into a caliber of its own, or at least in a caliber that I think could be competitive, and maybe even win 5-0 leagues. So I'm super excited about it. I'm probably going to immediately... I've already brewed a Liliana Tribal for Pioneer, so expect that to be put on the poll at some point. And I plan on probably trying the Waste Not deck in a Pioneer League. So, if there's anything that you guys think I got wrong here, let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button. Please, it doesn't take much effort. It really helps my channel. So I do ask you to do that. And also, can you please subscribe and hit that bell notification if you haven't already. So, until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoy the new Dominaria spoilers.